Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the speak world. My name is David Leichen. I'm the CMO at SQream, and we're very, very happy to have all of you here today. With me today is Arnon Shimoni, our product manager and one of the architects of SQream. And we're going to be talking to you today about Tableau dashboards, the insights that you're not seeing. Just a few words before we begin. First of all, if you have any questions, please send those through the question box that you'll see on your menu, and we will get to those questions at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, actually, if you could raise your hands just to make sure that you're hearing us okay, that would be very helpful. Okay, great. I see a few hands raised. So a couple of you are out and getting coffee, which is good. It's amazing, you know, really the amount of people that have signed in for this webinar. I think it's the biggest one we've ever had, and literally several hundred people who are interested in this topic, which is great. So you can hear us. Questions we'll be taking at the end. Just send those through on the question bar. And last but not least, Strata. So Strata is taking place in a few weeks. Actually, it'll be on the 23rd of September in New York City. Great technical event. A lot of data subjects going on there, whether it's Hadoop, the other data warehouses, all the visualizers will be there. And SQream will have a booth there as well, so come by and see us, please. And in addition, we will have a booth at the Tableau event, which will be taking place in November. So because a lot of you are interested in Tableau dashboards, I'm assuming that some of you will be out there in Vegas and you know, come and meet us at the booth, and maybe we can grab a drink or roll the bones, as they say, after the sessions are over. And really looking forward to seeing you there. So I think we should get started.
I will just mention that we have really cool giveaways for both trade shows this year. And if you come by and you mention, you mentioned that you've seen this webinar, just by name, we can give you a special giveaway. So absolutely do that.
Great.
And so
Thanks very much.
Let's get started.
Cool. So what's on the agenda for tonight? Really, it's the picture on the right side. You know, I started out a long time ago in this data world. Actually, my first job out of Wall Street, my first job out of university was on Wall Street for Salomon Brothers. And then I worked for TRW, which was an 80,000 person Fortune 100 company. And it's kind of funny to see where we've gone from, you know, early gigabytes to petabytes, exabytes of data, and how companies today are struggling with actually getting insights out of that data. So what we'll talk about today, fine-graining the dashboards that are always current, unrestricted access to your organization's full scope of data, valuable new insights on customers, operations, and business. And I think what we really want to talk about is anybody who's on this call is interested in getting more out of the data that they have. And what we're finding is that it's not happening. And if we look at the next slide, you'll see some of the things that we're hearing from the people that we're speaking to. So first of all, data is growing, but my analytic reports are seriously limited in scope. We have lots of data, but we can only analyze 10 to 20% of that data. The existing systems that are in place are quite old. RDBMSs that came out in the early 90s, maybe data warehouses that were installed in the late 90s, early 2000, and they're simply costly, they're complicated, and they require a lot of maintenance, and they're not able to give us the data sets that we want to analyze with Tableau. And lastly, well, not lastly, but just the ones that we decided to highlight, producing new insights is almost impossible as queries are using up more and more resources. We spoke to some very large companies that told us that these are really, really big data-driven companies. I don't want to, use the names only because I think you'd be very surprised and they might be embarrassed. But one of the largest online travel companies told me that they run queries, and after 10 hours of those queries executing, the IT department kills them, and they're not able to get the information that they need. So, that's quite a serious comment from one of the largest online travel companies. So I guess the question is really, how do you want to feel? You want to feel like, this lady who's using her hands to run around all the graphics on the screen, to be able to provide your board or your CEO or your CIO or the business users with whatever kind of graphics, or yourself with the information, the graphic, the reports, the analytics that you need, the drill down and the analytics that you'd want. But really, you're not feeling this way. You're actually feeling like, oh man, I'm going to have to wait the next 3 hours to get the results. What I'm seeing on the screen is only information for a week. Really, I need information for 6 months, 1 year, 3 years. This is not going to do it. The board have been, coming down on the CEO about giving us better reports, better information. And in the end of the day, it's the data analysts, the data scientists, the chief data officers who are feeling the effect of not being able to get the information that they want off their extremely large data stores, and that information is just sitting there and it's not doing much. So how much time is actually spent on data preparation? If we look at the Gartner analyst companies' numbers, so you can see organizations report that they spend more than 60% of their time in data preparation. Actually, when I spoke at a conference at the database show in Boston a couple of months back, I asked the people there, and they were telling me that sometimes they're spending even 70 or 80% of their time. And most data scientists, according to InfoWorld report, they're spending only 20% of their time on actual data analytics. So they're spending 80% of the time on cleaning the data, making sure the data is organized correctly for them to be able to analyze that data. And what they find is that they are not able to get those deep analytics off of their Tableau dashboards. So most companies are data rich, but they are poor on insights. And according to the McKinsey Group, only 10% of data is actually being analyzed, 90% is being lost. That means that what's coming up on your dashboards, you're losing out on a lot of analytics, a lot of data. And if we look at what's actually being analyzed, depending on what the size of your data lake is, you can see here is that out of a 100 terabyte data lake, you'll be analyzing on average about 10 terabytes, which is 10% of the data. But as your data grows, which is happening continuously, and as your data lake grows, and you go from 100 terabytes up to 10 petabytes of data, you're going from analyzing 10% of your data to only analyzing 0.5% of your data. So what we're seeing is that instead of becoming more superior in your business because you're able to analyze so much more data and get so much better insights, you're actually analyzing much less data. So we have this guru, this industry guru, Kalev Litaro, who recently came out with an article in Forbes in about AI and big data. And what he said was, and this is so true today, that the big data revolution will be sampled. How big data has come to mean small sample data. And a lot of you know that what you're seeing on your Tableau dashboards are actually the results of small sample data, as opposed to being able to see the insights off of large amounts of data. So if we look at where the inefficiencies are in your data pipe, so the first place is in the ETL process. So just getting the data from the data lake or from the multiple data sources into the databases upon which you're going to then do pre-computations, aggregated tables, materialized views, cubing, indexing, all of what needs to be done in order to make that data available for Tableau. And this is the problem. It can take a really, really long time, and we'll go through exactly what that means and how the time can be reduced in order that two things can happen. Number one, your queries can be executed that much more quickly so that the result sets that come to your dashboard will happen much more quickly. And the second, that you'll be able to analyze that much more data over your Tableau dashboard. So you can see here what Forbes says. Companies are losing big time. And this is where, when people say to me, okay, so David, I understand that I need to invest money into my data analytics. I understand I need to invest money to upgrade my antiquated systems, to maybe put something alongside the RDBMSs that were used 25 years ago. Okay, but how do I convince my boss of that? It's really hard to put an ROI on what I will gain by investing in data analytics. So here you have two examples of ROI, direct ROI, direct return on investment of investment in analytics. So Fortune 1000 companies can, with a 10% increase in data access, they can add $65 million to their net income. And the second one, big data at full power can increase operating margins of, this is an example of retailers, by 60% and more.
So David, with that, I think it's my turn actually.
I always enjoy hearing you speak, so please take it away, Arnon.
So I mean, I don't like slides with a lot of text, but I kind of had to put this one in because a lot of people who work with Tableau experience these things, and there's no really great graphical way of discussing this, unlike your slides. The most common thing that we see when with companies that approach us, and ask for help, is that they're running extracts. Now, I'm sure all of you know, but in Tableau, you have this mode that's called an extract mode, which actually queries the database and pulls in a lot of information from the database into Tableau. The reason that's done is similar to what you discussed, David, with a little bit earlier when you said that you have to generate cubes, for example, or you have to create pre-aggregations. This is not that different. You're actually telling Tableau, hey, why don't you pull in all the interesting data so that you can run the queries later? Now, for a lot of companies, that's fine. When you have a relatively small amount of data that can fit inside a Tableau server or a Tableau desktop, then extracts are actually a really good way to get that data in, because it means that you're transferring the data into Tableau and it's there, and you're not really using the database. So once you have the data in, it's ready to be analyzed. That's pretty good. That creates a bit of a problem because it creates static dashboards. So you actually have to create a process in which you update this extract every so often so that your dashboards actually seem a little bit more lively. Otherwise, an extract is very static. One of the things that causes is kind of a reluctance to use the database for what it's designed to do. The database is designed to answer questions. When you're using Tableau in an extract mode, you're not actually querying the database. You're querying Tableau, which is, I mean, that's okay. But once you want to correlate new data sources, so for example, you say, actually, I want to see how weather is related to this. If you can get the data into Tableau, that's fine. But if it's too big to fit in Tableau, you can't really correlate new data sources. It becomes really difficult to explore. What we often see is that a lot of customers also have Tableau desktop, for example, in which they run all of their analytics in, and that's not really a very suitable platform because they're not getting the full power. They're running this on a desktop or like a small workstation, as opposed to a fully blown Tableau server installation. And then they don't necessarily have the compute and the RAM required to run very big analytics. So I can tell you that, for example, when I run Tableau desktop and I create a dashboard, I only have about 16 gigabytes of RAM in my machine. That's not a very small amount, but it's also not very big. If you consider that you have to bring the data into Tableau, and you consider, oh, I'm about to bring a data set that's larger than 16 gigabytes, you're going to have a very, very bad time. You're not going to enjoy that. Tableau is going to get angry with you to begin with, and even if you can find a way to maybe force its arm into taking more data into its own internal database, you're not going to be able to analyze that very effectively. So what you start doing is you start kind of tricking it. You're saying, well, let's create a filter. Let's try to limit the amount of data I put in. I'll only look at 7 days. I'll only look at 2 days. I'll only look at a few hours of the day. And that plays in very well to what you mentioned, David, is you're only analyzing a small percentage of your data. And if you say, well, I'm actually interested to see, for example, for a retailer, what happened in the 5 months before Thanksgiving, before Black Friday, for example, you can't do that in Tableau Desktop. So you can create a dashboard in Tableau Desktop, then you have to publish it into the server, and then you have to try and do that there. And that kind of messes up the workflow for a lot of people. It becomes less dynamic and less responsive than you would otherwise want. So what happens is a lot of users actually also use CSVs. They export data from the database, they store it into a CSV that's already been pre-computed, pre-aggregated, and they push that into Tableau Desktop. That's something that we've seen a few times, and we think that's less than ideal. I'll touch on that in a little bit. So what we're offering is the GPU paradigm. We're offering to change how we look at data analytics. Instead of having lots of compute, lots of CPU compute, we're offering a GPU accelerated compute engine that can power Tableau. So the inflexible analytics that we saw before, with all of these different kind of workarounds, and these are called data warehousing techniques, but they're actually workarounds. All these pre-computations, the aggregations, the cubes, the extracts that lead to the inflexible analytics, we're offering something a little bit different, where we're actually not taking care of the first part of the problem that you mentioned, David. The ETL process and the cleansing of data sources, that still has to happen. We're not trying to fix that problem. What we're trying to fix is the inflexible analytics and the short time frame that you usually get when you're on Tableau Desktop and you have the limited resources. So what we're saying is, instead of having these extracts and working with CSVs, why don't you let SQreamDB, an accelerated data warehouse, GPU accelerated, do the analytics for you. So Tableau is still the visualizer, but instead of running in an extract mode or running off static CSV files, we're letting Tableau access a very fast database in live mode. So the far too common scenario that I mentioned, that people use CSVs, is actually a very frustrating process, because you do the data prep on CSVs, you end up with a result that you have to copy somewhere, and then typically that will sit on a network drive. And then you push that into Tableau Desktop, and then you want to publish that. So you publish it to Tableau Server, and then you have to make sure that that CSV is also accessible to the server. But I mean, it's doable. So interacting with the data is hard, but hey, at least you're using Tableau, which is still fantastic, and we love Tableau. What we're offering is a little bit different. We're saying, take the same data, put it into SQreamDB. You ETL it or you load it directly. It can be a CSV, it can be Parquet, columnar format, or it can come from HDFS, from S3, from wherever. And you let Tableau, with a live SQL connection, access that data. So what you're essentially doing is you're pushing the hard work from Tableau into SQreamDB. What that results in is live data exploration with little to no data preparation needed. Some sources will just work. Some sources you may have to, for example, you may wish to transform some of the values. You may wish to limit some of them. You can do the filtering in SQreamDB instead of in Tableau. And then you're not overloading it. And then publishing it to the server, for example, is super trivial. It's just an ODBC connection, which is shared by everyone. So what we're offering is actually quite significant value here, where you let SQreamDB do the ingestion and the analysis that you would otherwise do externally. You're using Tableau Desktop to explore and create the insight initially. So Tableau Desktop still absolutely crucial to the data exploration part. And what you do afterwards is you deploy that to Tableau server. Once you deploy it, you can share the different workboards, the worksheets and the dashboards that you created, and you can create this data-driven story to engage every part of the organization. And once you publish it with Tableau server, it's accessible by everyone, and everyone can slice and dice and filter and look at the different sheets, and that's incredibly powerful. So the question is, how do we actually do this, and why is this interesting? So as you saw from the previous diagrams, it's just a live connection through ODBC into SQreamDB. It's very, very trivial. It's very easy to do. Tableau connects in live mode to SQreamDB, which pushes all the analytics into it. So if you're looking at 3 or 4 or 17 different tables, for example, you join them in Tableau, but the actual computation happens on GPU accelerated hardware inside SQreamDB. So you're actually letting it do all the hard work. It does the complex transformations. It does the multi-key, multi-table joins. It can do the math. It can do the sorting. It can do the filtering. It can do a whole bunch of different things. And the fact that it can run lots of queries in parallel by using both the GPU and CPU resources means you're actually getting a lot of bang for your buck. This is a very, very effective way to get analytics fast into a relatively modest Tableau installation. So you don't need to rely on thousands of cores for Tableau server. You don't need to distribute it. It can actually work with a much smaller installation than you would otherwise have. And this enables you to scale out both in terms of compute and storage, but it also enables you to scale to more users. And more users can run more queries and run more filters. And this just becomes a tool that allows everyone in the organization across different lines of business to interact with these dashboards. They're no longer static. They are now updated live whenever you click something in Tableau. Now, this is all well and good, and we actually have customers to show for what we've done. So we actually have done this in production with a variety of customers. One of the ones that I like speaking to is AIS in Thailand. It's my favorite customer. The reason is because I was part of the implementation team there. And what we did with AIS is we actually connected Tableau for the first time at this customer. So they had Tableau, but they were never able to look at, for example, this big table of call data records. So what we actually did for them is we allowed them to get a holistic view of customers' behavior by joining a big CDR table, so the call data records, joined with the customer profile table, which is 40 million rows. And we joined that with the customer location table, which is 300,000 rows. And all of this was done in live for the customer on their site. And this is SQreamDB running live mode with Tableau. And what you're actually looking at is different people and how they experience the network and the network performance throughout the day, where larger circles represent higher data throughput and smaller circles represent smaller data throughput. So we're actually seeing which cells are more popular throughout the day. And we're actually filtering here by morning, afternoon, evening, night, sleep time. So we can actually help the customer design for better network performance. We can say this area doesn't see a lot of network activity during the day. You can shift resources from that to somewhere else. So that's something that we've actually done in production for our customer. And they love Tableau and we love Tableau, and the result is phenomenal. And this is the first time they were actually able to visualize so many points on their screen because Tableau isn't doing the hard work here. It's doing the visualization, but the actual tables being joined, the actual calculations are happening behind the scenes in SQreamDB. And it's worth mentioning that SQreamDB is a data warehouse. It's a database. It's used like you would any other use any other database. You can funnel data in from a variety of data sources, either directly or through ETL tools. And on the other side, we have the visualizers, and Tableau is here at the top, and for good reason. It is our favorite visualizer. It works amazingly well. We're actually part of the Tableau partner program for technologies. So we love it. It's amazing. And we urge you to try us. So if you have long-running Tableau dashboards, you have something that just isn't clicking, you feel like you're limited in what you're doing, we urge you to try us because we can make it work for you. One last thing I wanted to show you is how we actually scale to different lines of business. So similar to what you might find today, and this is true for relatively modern databases, is this kind of different compute for different lines of business. So we've been doing this for a while now, and we think this is really compelling because we can actually split the compute for different lines of business for different users. So if you have your data scientists, they can get dedicated compute resources while still seeing the same data sources and same data that others around the organization can see. So what we're actually saying here is, for example, for Tableau, we can have dedicated resources so that you don't have to shut down the queries. David mentioned that one of the large travel agencies, online travel agencies, actually has to shut down queries after they take 6 or 12 or whatever, how many hours. You don't have to do that with SQreamDB. To begin with, queries won't take that long, but even assuming that they do, you still have dedicated resources that you can shuffle around, and you can say, these are the amount of resources I'm planning for this line of business and for that line of business. And this scalability is key to what makes SQreamDB very, very enticing and very cost effective as well. Because if you know, for example, you don't have data scientists and you only have reporting and some data engineers, you can have fewer compute resources while still maintaining a lot of storage resources because you have a lot of data and you need the storage resources. Once you start hiring more data scientists, for example, or your requirements grow, you can grow with the number of compute resources without having to scale the storage. This is in stark contrast to what you see with the Hadoop world, where you actually scale compute and storage together. So that's something that I did want to mention. It makes our work with Tableau also a lot easier because we can just add more compute resources for Tableau as we see fit. And this is something that we've done for several customers. And I think that's pretty exciting. David, back to you.
So please send us any questions that you have. We'd be very happy to answer them. Maybe just one more note before we go into the Q&A. Arnaud mentioned AIS. We have many use cases that we've helped organizations who are running Tableau as their front end and their dashboards, their primary visualization dashboards. And we've helped organizations in finance and retail, actually retail/wholesale, medical, also in finance and banking, insurance, telecom, of course. So really across the spectrum, ad tech, and we can share a lot of those use cases with you. So I see we have a couple of questions that have come in. Okay, so one's from Russell. He's a data analyst, and he's basically running into trouble. It looks like he has Hadoop, and he thinks it's an Oracle RDBMS, and he's able to only get queries running on 2.5 months of data, and he'd like to be able to compare previous years' periods, including holidays like Christmas, it says. So Arnaud, I think this is actually an easy one. We're looking here at scaling up to more data and to be able to do it quickly.
So, I mean, if without changing anything, what you would have to do is you would have to basically create a dashboard and then create another dashboard with a different data set and try to look at them alternatively, right? You look at one, then you look at the other. Unless that data is no longer accessible to you at all, because I mean, we know some customers tend to archive some of the data and then it's no longer accessible. If that's the case, then I don't know what to say. But in general, if you don't have access to the data, then you really need something that can let you access the data, even if it's historical. And that's something that we see a lot with Hadoop, right? Where you have your historical data, but then it might not be very performant. And then you might have to wait a really long time to get the results. That's something that we don't see personally as much. So this is actually interesting. And Russell, if you want to send us an email afterwards, that would be really interesting to look at. I think that's something that we can absolutely help with. With SQreamDB, it's just about dumping the data in, and we don't care if it's historical or fresh. It's always available for analysis. We don't have this concept of archiving old data. It's just always accessible. So actually, do drop us a line. I think that would be interesting to look at.
Okay, great. Sherry has a question about, she says that she works in live mode, and basically
Yeah.
IT wants to shoot her, and she's told
Okay.
to create an extract in off hours because the queries are just using too much of the system resources.
Yeah, so that's actually something that we touched upon earlier. And I said one of the common roadblocks with Tableau is the extract. It's a workaround, right? It's a valid workaround for the most part. If when you create an extract, you're getting everything that you need and it's fast enough and you don't need it to refresh very often, then that's a valid solution, and I mean, that's fine. When you do want your data to refresh more often, you either have to, as you've probably already been told, and as it seems like you're doing already, you have to do it in the off hours so that you're not overloading the system, because it does transfer a lot of data. Once again, this is something that we don't have a problem with personally, because we like letting Tableau work in live mode. I think that live mode is, it's problematic when your database is a little bit older or when it's not designed specifically for analytics. If you're running it against, for example, a very small MySQL or Postgres installation, then you might be actually accessing a lot of data, which is very inefficient. If you do have a very large database, a very large cluster, then it's not that big a deal. For SQreamDB, we like the live mode. We recommend the live mode to our customers. We think it's more flexible. So that's something that we do recommend. And once again, if you need help with that, do drop us a line.
Okay, so there's a question here from Joy, who is asking if it's possible to drill down on raw data. You know, in his dashboard, he's got a limited view of the data and wants to know how deep down he can go into, let's say, the raw data.
Right. That really depends how this dashboard was created and how the data was arranged to begin with. In some cases, if it is an extract and the data has been brought into the database, then into Tableau, then you should be able to drill down in it. There shouldn't be any limitation of drilling down with an extract. When you're actually looking at a dashboard that someone else created in, for example, you're looking at it from Tableau server, and the person that created the dashboard hasn't given any consideration to how you would drill down, sometimes that drill down is not available. So it really depends, I guess, how the dashboard was created. In general, once again, when we recommend the live mode, that's something that we do in order to allow this endless drilling down into the finest details. So, for example, what we did with AIS that I showed earlier, and here it is again. This actually allows them to drill down into specific locations and drill down into specific times of the day. And they can say, I actually want to look only at one day. I want to look at every other weekend. I want to look at only on Saturdays throughout the entire year. This is something that they're able to do. And that's because we built it in this specific way. And that's something that you can do with the live mode, and you can't really do when you, for example, pre-aggregate the data. So that's something that we don't recommend. We don't recommend you pre-aggregate the data unless you absolutely have to and your database can't support, running live queries on a large historical time frame.
Okay, great. We have a couple of more questions. Anybody else who has questions, feel free. We have another few minutes. So Raj is asking whether he needs to put a GPU on his Tableau server in order to run SQream.
Right. Maybe that was my slide that confused when I talked about the GPU, changing the paradigm to the GPU. So I think this is the slide he's referring to. No, you don't. So the GPU is not used for the rendering. It's not used in Tableau, because Tableau is usually not the bottleneck. Tableau is not the problem. It can actually do a lot, and it's really good at what it does. You don't really need a GPU in your Tableau server and your Tableau desktop. I don't think it helps at all. I don't think Tableau is very GPU aware. We're talking about using the GPU as the backend. We're talking about using the GPU to get more compute from the database, from the data warehouse, from where the data actually sits. And this is actually done to accelerate data processing and not so much for the rendering. So I'm sorry if that slide was a little bit confusing, but the idea is inside SQreamDB, where we said we're actually using the GPU for processing. So GPU is inside SQreamDB and not inside Tableau. And this slide clarifies that a little bit better, I think.
Okay, great. Prajna has a question about Hyper, because Tableau, I recall also Tableau acquired a company called Hyper, which is an in-memory database. So
that's correct.
Why isn't that enough to have my queries running fast if it's in memory? And how does that jive with SQream?
Yeah. So Hyper is actually a pretty cool database. It's an in-memory database, as you said. And it's really designed to help the situation where you're creating an extract. So they've actually made incredible advancements with regards to the extracts. So when you create an extract and you load the data into Tableau from your data source, you're actually getting a lot faster. You're getting very fast queries, which is why I said at the beginning, if your extracts work for you and you can fit everything in Hyper, and it's an in-memory database. So if you have these 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes, and that's the scale of your analytics, then that's absolutely fine, and Hyper is amazing. It doesn't really affect the use cases that SQreamDB is designed for. The SQreamDB tends to, we position our product as more of a very large data set product. So it's designed for data sets that don't fit in memory, that will not fit in memory even on the client side if you had to copy all of that data over. So once again, if when you create an extract, the level of detail that you have from that is enough for you, then Hyper solves your problem absolutely. If you need to analyze more data than what you're currently using, and you want to do that, for example, in live mode, then Hyper no longer is really relevant in the same manner. So then you still need SQreamDB, and that we still shine there for now.
Okay, great. Actually, the next question I think I'll take. Somebody's asking when the Tableau conference is. So as I mentioned, it's in Las Vegas from November 12th till the 15th of
At Mandalay Bay.
At Mandalay Bay, a really nice hotel. We're going to be in the TC19 Data Village. So please come by. You'll be actually, we're going to have a very fun booth. You'll be able to spin the wheel in order to win some interesting things, and of course you'll be able to,
because we're in Vegas.
So we won't give away everything now, but also you'll be able to see a demo of SQream Live, and you'll be able to talk to our data experts. We're going to have really top guys there. So, you know, what we want you to do is come prepared with your biggest challenge. And in fact, if you want, after this webinar, if you have a big challenge, a big data challenge, you know, challenge us. You know, we love challenges. We are, you know, I know SQream, it's a play, it's a cliche, but we're screaming fast, you know, and we love to hear about stories where, you know, you press the enter on your Tableau dashboard and you're waiting for 6 hours, or you go off to lunch, you come back and things are still running, and you know you went for a 2-hour French lunch. And these are the types of things we like to hear about. When you can't, you know, analyze more than 5 terabytes of data or less, this is where we really shine. So send us your challenges and put us in the position of showing you that you can actually get the results that you want. Now, while we're on the topic, I mentioned earlier as well that we're going to be at Strata, and I noticed in the sign up that a lot of you are from the East Coast. So Strata Data Conference will take place September 24th till September 26th in New York City. If you want to join the conference, you can use the discount code SQREAM20, SQREAM20, to receive a 20% discount. If you have any problems with getting that, please send me an email to david@SQream.com and come and hear us. We're going to be talking there about, we'll be discussing also Tableau, but we'll also be discussing things like Hadoop. It's a very big Hadoop event. And we'll be speaking on Wednesday, September 25th in room 1A at 5:25 p.m. And we'll also have a pop-up talk in the morning on the 25th, on Wednesday the 25th. And so please stop by and see us. We'll be in booth 1354. And actually we have a nice play on unlocking your data. We have an escape artist coming, and we'll be having shows every couple of hours where he'll be breaking out of a straitjacket, and it's going to be a really fun
Don't reveal all
thing.
the plans. Let people be
Well,
surprised.
I won't tell about how he'll manage to get out of the straitjacket. So,
All right.
you know, that's okay. Look, we have time for one last question, and
Yep.
this question came in just a minute ago. What is the level of flexibility to construct the architecture of the GPU network? I mean, can the number of GPUs be set? I'm just trying to get to the, I froze up here a little bit for some reason. Give me a second.
Yeah. So I
maybe,
think the reference is to this slide.
Yeah. I mean, can the number of GPU be set, or is it managed by the platform? That's the question.
It can be set. In general, we can, I mean, we can work in both ways. In general, you can say, I only want to allocate 2 GPUs today because that's what you feel like, and that's perfectly fine. Tomorrow, you can say, I can allocate 100 because I have 100 GPUs. I'm swimming in money and I have 100 GPUs. You can do that. There's no limitation on that. And because we use the centralized storage, joining and like having a node or a node with GPUs like join or leave, you don't have to reshuffle the data, you don't have to redistribute it. So you can just power on another computer with GPUs and have it take place as part of the cluster, and it takes like a couple of minutes at most to do this. So it's really, really fast. It's really flexible. And then when you don't need this anymore, you can shut it down, or you can just disconnect it from the cluster. And then this no longer participates in the cluster, but the data is still available for anyone else connected, and you still get for the other resources are still available to answer queries. So this is something that's really very easy to do, and this is up to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sidola, for the question, and I hope that that answered your question. Well, we're out of time, and thank you very much, all of you, for being with us. I hope it was educational, enjoyable, and we look forward to having you on the next webinar that we'll be having, which will probably take place in October, and we'll send out information to you about that webinar. And we look forward to seeing you at Strata, at Tableau, and like I said, challenge us. Give us your biggest data challenge. We want to help you, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and have a good evening, have a good day, have a good afternoon, wherever you are.